Good day, everyone. We will be presenting the chapter 9, which is about the Rizal's Grand Tour of Europe with Dr. Maximo Viola in 1887. So, I am Rica Tesio, and together with me is Mr. Karlo Abao. So, this chapter focuses on Rizal's travel across Europe after the publication of his novel No Limitang Here. So, it highlights his experiences, the places he visited, and how this journey influenced his ideas and growth as a nationalist. So after the publication of No Limitang Rizal planned to visit important places in Europe. So he was accompanied by his friend Maximo Viola, who agreed to travel with him. So si Rizal, before siya nilarga pa ato sa Europe, naka-receive siya og financial support gikan sa iyahang igsuon nga si Pasiano Rizal. So si Pasiano gitagaan niya si Rizal sa 1,000 pesos, which was sent through Juan Luna in Paris. So katong 1,000 pesos, Rizal used part of his money to repay Viola 300 pesos, which he had borrowed earlier sa gigamit niya para sa pagprint sa No Limitang Here. So, now that his debt was settled and he had enough fund, Rizal was ready to explore Europe before eventually returning to Calamba. Their journey began with a visit to Potsdam, a city near Berlin made famous by Frederick the Great. So, you might all be wondering, ano si Frederick the Great ang nakaka-famous sa Potsdam? It is because si Frederick the Great, siya ang landscape sa garden and sa palace sa Potsdam. So, ang kaning Potsdam, it is a historic city just southwest of Berlin. So, it is renowned as the former residence of Prussian kings and the German viceroys. So, due to its extensive nga palaces and gardens, mo to siyang si Frederick the Great, siya ang nag-landscape, ang nag-design sa entire nga garden. So yes, si Frederick the Great, siya ang nag-landscape sa palace or sa garden. And mao na siya ang nahinungdan nganong na famous siya tungod sa iyahang beauty sa garden. So the tour begin on May 11, 1887, sa kadlawon si Rizal ug Viola left Berlin by train. So they were described as two brown-skinned doctors traveling across Europe during spring, which was the perfect season for travel. So at this time, Europe was full of life, flowers were blooming, fields were turning green, and villages were active. According ni Viola, si Rizal di ay is sa iyang luggage, nagdala siya sa napuno sa mga letters nga gikan sa iyang family and friends. So tungod aning action is nag-show siya nga up until nga naa siya sa gawa sa Philippines, he was connected and he was remained to his loved ones despite being far from home. Next, Rizal and Viola traveled to Dresden where they stayed for some time. So as I mentioned earlier, nga si Rizal and Viola traveled sa Europe with a fall of life season. As they visit Dresden, it happens to be they celebrating a regional floral exposition, which it is like a large exhibition of different kinds of plants and flowers. So Rizal, who had a strong interest in botany, took his opportunity to study many plant varieties and were noted for their extraordinary beauty and size. So while naa sila sa Dresden, they also visited Dr. Adolf B. Mayer, who was very happy to see them. So they also explored to the Museum of Art, where Rizal was deeply impressed by the painting Prometheus Band. This artwork reminded him of a familiar piece he had seen earlier in Paris. So, showing his appreciation of art and his sharp memory. So while walking around the floral exposition, they met Dr. Fedor Hager or Jager in German. When Jager learned that Rizal and Viola were planning to visit Dr. Ferdinand Blumentritt in Litmeres, he advised them to send a telegram first. So he explained that Blumentritt might be easily shocked by an unexpected visit, so it would be better to inform him in advance. After leaving Dresden, Rizal and Viola traveled to Dischen, formerly Trischen, where they sent a telegram to Blumentritt following Jager advice. So next is the first meeting between Rizal and Ferdinand Blumentritt. On May 15, 1887, at around 1:30 in the afternoon, Rizal and Viola arrived at the railroad station of Litomires, which was then called Litmires. So, Professor Blumentritt was already waiting for them at the station. So, he was carrying a pencil sketch ni Rizal, so he would easily recognize him since Mauni ang first meeting nila in person. So, this moment is very special because even though they had been exchanging letters for a long time, this was the first time si Dr. Blumentritt and si Rizal kita in face to face in person. So Blumentritt warmly welcomed them and arranged for their stay in Hotel Cribs. After that, he personally brought Rizal and Viola to his home where they stayed for a few days. During their stay in Litomiris or Litmiris, Rizal and Viola experienced the warm hospitality from the family of Ferdinand Blumentritt. Blumentritt's wife, Rusa, was a very good cook. She prepared traditional Austrian dishes, which Rizal enjoyed very much. Blumentritt was not only a kind host but also a great guide. He personally toured Rizal and Viola around the city, showing them the scenic and historical places of Litmiris. So, during their visit, even the town mayor, also known as the Burgomaster, was impressed by Rizal. He admired Rizal's privileged talent, recognizing his intelligence and abilities. After their stay in Litmiris, Rizal and Viola continued their journey to the historic city of Prague. They bought letters of recommendation from Dr. Ferdinand Blumentritt, which helped them connect with important scholars including si Dr. Welcome, a professor at the University of Prague. So this shows how Blumentritt supported Rizal not only as a friend, but also by helping him build connections in Europe. While in Prague, Rizal and Viola also visited the tomb of Nicholas Copernicus, the famous scientist who proposed that the Earth revolves around the sun. So during their visit, Rizal reflects deep admiration of science and great thinkers. And that concludes my part of the presentation, and I will now pass the discussion to Mr. Karlo Abao to continue the presentation.
Tesio. So to continue, on May 20, Rizal and Viola arrived in the beautiful city of Vienna, capital of Austria-Hungary, famous in song and story. This city fascinates Rizal because of its beautiful buildings, religious images, haunting walls, and majestic charm. So Vienna was truly the queen of the north. Rizal and Viola, armed with a letter of recommendation from Blumentritt, met Northern Falls, one of the greatest novelists in Europe during that time. This great novelist was favorably impressed by Rizal and years later he spoke highly of Rizal, whom he said, whose genius he so much admired. In Vienna, Rizal received his lost diamond stick pin. It was found by a maid in Hotel Krebs and was given to Blumentritt, who in turn forwarded it to Rizal in Vienna. Rizal and Viola stayed at Hotel Metropole. They visited the city's interesting places, such as churches, museums, art galleries, theaters, and public parks. They met two good friends of Blumentritt there, Massner and Nordmann. These are two Austrian scholars. Now, on May 24, Rizal and Viola left Vienna on a riverboat to see beautiful sights of Danube River. As they traveled around the famous river, Rizal observed keenly the river sights, the barges loaded with products, the flowers and plants growing along the river banks, the boats with families living on them, and the quaint villages on the riversides. We particularly noticed that the passengers on the boat were using paper napkins during the meals, which was a novelty for him. His fellow passenger, Viola, commented that the paper napkins were more hygienic and economical than the cloth napkins. So, the river voyage ended in Linz. They traveled overland to Salzburg and from there to Munich, where they sojourned for a short time to savor the famous Munich beer, reputed to be the best in Germany. From Munich they went to Nuremberg, one of the oldest cities in Germany. Among the sights which they saw in the city were the horrible torture machines used by the Inquisition. Rizal examined carefully these torture machines. He and Viola were impressed by the manufacture of dolls, which was the biggest industry in the city. After Munich, they visited Ulm. The cathedral of this city was the largest and tallest in all Germany. Viola related that he and Rizal climbed its many hundred steps. He rested twice on the way to the tower and felt dizzy from the strain upon reaching the top. Rizal, on the other hand, ascended without resting and was not tired when he reached the top. From Ulm they went to Stuttgart, Baden, and then Rainfall. At Rainfall they saw the waterfall, the most beautiful waterfall in Europe. From Rainfall uh, they crossed the frontier to Schaffhausen, Switzerland. They stayed in the city from June 2 to 3. In 1887, they continued their tour in Basel or Bale, Bern, and Laos. After sightseeing in Lausanne, Rizal and Viola left on a little boat, crossing the foggy Leman Lake to Geneva. This Swiss city is one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. Visited by the world tourists every year, the people of Geneva were linguists, speaking French, German, and Italian. Rizal conversed with them in these three languages. Aside from visiting the tourist spots, Rizal and Viola went boating on the lake. In this aquatic excursion, Rizal showed his rowing prowess, which he acquired during his boyhood days in Calamba. On June 19, 1887, Rizal treated Viola to a blowout. It was his 26th birthday. According to a Filipino custom, he celebrated his birthday with a sumptuous meal. Rizal and Viola spent 15 delightful days in Geneva. On June 23, they parted ways. Viola returned to Barcelona, while Rizal continued the tour to Italy. While Rizal, accompanied by Doctor Viola, was happily touring in Europe, an exposition of the Philippines was held in Madrid, Spain. Upon reaching Geneva, or Switzerland, in Switzerland, he received sad news from his friends in Madrid of the deplorable conditions of the primitive Igorots who were exhibited in this exposition, some of whom died, and whose scanty clothing, G-strings, and crude weapons were object of mockery and laughter by the Spanish people and press. Being a champion of human dignity, Rizal was outraged by this degradation of his fellow countrymen, the Igorots of the northern Luzon. In a letter to his friends, Blumentritt, dated Geneva, June 6, 1887, he said, My poor compatriots, who are now being exhibited in Madrid, are mocked by Spanish newspapers, except El Liberal, which says that it is not consistent with human dignity to be exhibited side by side with animals and plants. I have done everything possible to prevent the display of this degradation of men of my race, but I have not succeeded, he said. Now one woman died of pneumonia. The Egrots were housed in a buraka, a rustic house made of bamboo, grass, and tree branches. And El Resumen still makes mean jokes about it, he said. So in another letter to Blumentritt, dated Geneva, June 19, 1887, Rizal said he was in favor of holding an exposition, but not an exhibition of odd individuals, showing our countrymen as a curiosity to entertain the idle inhabitants of Madrid. He emphatically reiterated, we want industrial exposition, but not an exhibition of human beings who are compelled to live almost outdoors and die of nostalgia and pneumonia or typhus, he said. So from Geneva, Rizal went to Italy. He visited Turin, Milan, Venice, and Florence. On June 27, 1887, he reached Rome, the Eternal City, and also called the City of the Caesars. He was thrilled by the sights and memories of the Eternal City, describing to Blumentritt the grandeur that was Rome. He wrote on 27, 1887. He said, I am in Rome. Everything I step on is the dust of heroes. Here I breathe the same air which the Roman heroes have breathed. I salute every statue with reverence, and to me, a humble native of a small island, it seems that I am in a sanctuary. I have already seen the Capitolium, the Tarpeian Rock, the Palatinum, the Forum Romanum, the amphitheater, and etc. Everything here is glorious except the cafes and cafe singers. I do not enter these cafes because I loathe to hear their French songs or see modern industries. My favorite places are the amphitheater and the Roman Forum. There I remain seated for hours, contemplating everything and restoring life to the ruins. I have also visited some churches and museums like the Capitoline Museum and the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore, which is also grandiose, so which is also grand. So on June 29th, the feast day of Saint Peter and Saint Paul, Rizal visited for the first time the Vatican, the city of the popes, and the capital of Christendom. He was deeply impressed by the magnificent edifices, particularly of Saint Peter's Church, the rare works of art, the vast Saint Peter's Square, the colorful papal guards, and the atmosphere of religious devotion that pervaded the Vatican. Every night, after sightseeing the whole day, Rizal returned to his hotel very tired. He said, "I am tired as a dog," he wrote to Bloomington, "but I will sleep as a god." After a week of wonderful sojourn in Rome, he prepared to return to the Philippines. He had already written to his father that he was coming home. That's all for the chapter 9 of uh, Rizal's Grand Tour of Europe, Viola. Thank you so much, sir. That's all.